Good evening there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's Wednesday Wisdom. I'm Dr. Botelho with the Diabetes Free Life Group, and I hope you guys are all having a wonderful time, and you've been having a wonderful time over the holidays, and it is absolutely the beginning of the new year. Hope you've had the opportunity to be able to see the people that you love and enjoy spending time with. So it is a great time of the year, and I want to talk about that here this evening. It is a great time to make sure that you make yourself a priority. Goodness, time to get back into the schedule, time to get focused on what's next. And what does 2025, can you believe that? 2025, what does it actually hold for you? 2025, I absolutely believe it can be the best year for you. You know, from a health perspective, consistent actions towards a worthy target, that's what we talked about last week. That's the big key thing. It's having a target. You know, I get to see people and I get to see your messages coming in from the group here, and they're looking for how-to-dos. You know, that's one of the things that we've been seeing a lot lately. You know, how do I take the steps? How do I take the necessary steps to actually accomplish something like X, Y, or Z? Well, today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be answering some of those questions that we've been getting in, and I'm excited to share that with you here today. Today what we're going to be talking about is actually the topic of brain fog. Sometimes it seems funny and we laugh about it, and you know, we walk into a room and we forget what we're doing. You know, why are we there in the first place? You know, how many of you have done this, right? You walk into the garage, you're looking for something, and then all of a sudden you're blank, like you just have a blank, like you just don't know why you walked in there. Or you're looking for your keys, or you all of a sudden you're next thing you know you're thinking about something else, and then you just wonder why is that happening? Like why did it happen in the first place? You know, why did I come in here? And what do? We call those something called senior moments. You know, did you know that those senior moments, and that's what I want to talk about here today, they're not normal. Obviously, it's common, but it's not normal. And I think as a society, what's happened is because something happens often enough, because it happens commonly, we just automatically assume that it's normal. You know, so many people experience this as they age, and it's not really part of the aging process. That those signs, those symptoms of forgetfulness, the senior moments, that's a warning sign. You know, if you have diabetes, and I know you do because you're part of this group, if you have diabetes, you have a 56% increased risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. Just because you carry the diagnosis of diabetes, 56%. Like that's not ideal, is it? So these brief memory lapses, they show up. Sometimes you can't find a word that you're looking for in a conversation. Sometimes you forget where your glasses are, your wallet, your keys. You know, if these occurrences are happening to you right now, I want you to stop. I want you to ask yourself one question. What's inside of my body that's not supposed to be there? See, no one asks this question, the question of why. Everyone just assumes that there are problems, that it's their brain or it's their genetics. And I'm telling you that there are causes out there of cognitive decline if you're experiencing it. And the medical literature knows this as well. You know, now I run tox panels on all of our patients, and I want to know what's inside of their body that's forcing their DNA to express these problematic experiences. If there's a toxin inside of your body that's making your brain function abnormally, well, then obviously we got to address that. In order for us to actually have a shot of living your life to the fullest, no one wants to end up in a home or with memory care staff looking over them, but because they can't remember how to eat, they can't remember how to bathe, brush their teeth. So one of the most common things that I find on tox panels is actually a heavy metal that I want to talk about right now, and it's called cadmium. And I'll spell it for you here. You can write it down. It's CADMIUM, cadmium. It's a known obesogen. It actually forces your body to actually develop obesity. It's a known driver of cognitive impairment. It's a metal, and you get exposed through it to things like food, smoke, pollution in the air, and it's used in manufacturing tons of different industrial agents. So it's definitely cruising around, and it's in the air that we breathe as well. So no, cadmium is also in the soil, and especially in certain regions of the United States, which means that it's in the food that you're eating. And if you have soil that's rich in cadmium, then unfortunately it can wind up in your food sources, taking the metal in, and it's getting it from the ground. I guarantee some of you have never heard this before, but like your vegetables might be contributing to your issues. Things like potatoes and grains as examples. You name it, if it grows in the ground, it can smuggle this heavy metal cadmium into your body. And cadmium's everywhere. you're not going to just be able to, you're not just going to be able to avoid it. You know, cadmium forces the accumulation of these little proteins in your brain, and they're called tau proteins. And they are the absolute hallmark of neurodegeneration. Neurodegeneration is what leads to these senior moments, the forgetfulness, and this is what we're talking about, right? Senior moments, and unfortunately over time they just get worse. Now, if you can't avoid cadmium in the environment, you can't avoid it in the food, well, what do? Well, something that I do with many patients who get stuck in these same experiences that I've been describing here tonight is we use L-theanine. You know, it's an amino acid, it's a nutrient, and it can be used to interrupt these cadmium processes. And it's pretty cool. A lot of studies on this nutrient show the results of being able to actually reverse cadmium. It induces the damage, it prevents the damage and the dysfunction that I've been describing here tonight with you. Clinically, we see patients getting back to being sharp-minded once again. Clinically, we see better attention spans, less napping, improved cognitive experiences, and it's always pretty awesome when that happens. Something to look into if you find yourself, you know, you're stuck in this poor cognitive experience. Well, what's cool is L-theanine. It can provide some of these side benefits that we just talked about. You know, less perceived stress, anxiety, better sleep, improved emotional balance, mood, lots of different things. And these are cool side effects that from this main reason that we're talking about tonight, which is brain fog. So L-theanine is being researched right now for the healing impact on things like cardiovascular health, things like migraines, even gut function. They all have a net benefit with the use of L-theanine, and it's going to help someone out here this evening. I know that's the case. This is why I show up every single Wednesday to give you information. And we always hear it. We always hear someone who refers back to us and says, hey, I use this information and I'm getting better. You don't need to just sit here, you worry yourself into bad health. You don't need to sit there just worrying over and over and obsess about your memory issues. Now, if you start asking the right questions, remember, everyone just assumes that you're going to get worse and you're going to get worse slowly over time, silently losing your wits. So don't try to hide it. You get kind of stuck in this idea that you're just embarrassed. You don't want to tell your friends or your family. I get it. I've seen it firsthand. But you got to start asking the questions like, is there something inside of my body that might be causing this? That it's not just a normal aging process. Just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal, right? Is this a situation that I could potentially change by actually addressing it, by actually taking note of it and saying, wait a minute, there might be something here. And the only way you're going to find out is ask the question, why? Ask the question, why? You know, why do I talk about this, especially as a diabetic? Well, diabetes is what I call the great magnifier. And the research is clear about this. Conditions a persons are just prone to are always magnified if you have diabetes, if you have the presence of diabetes, like heart disease. You know, if you're prone to heart disease because you have a family history of it and then you have diabetes, it's worse. Cognitive decline, which is what we're talking about right now. If you're prone to cognitive decline, then you have diabetes, it is absolutely worse. Same for things like fibromyalgia, neuropathies, autoimmune diseases, even GI problems. Diabetes makes everything else worse. It's the great, how should I say, it's like a magnifying glass for the rest of your health. So anyway, L-theanine, right? You can find it in places like Amazon, CVS, Walgreens. They'll all have it. It's definitely worth looking into. You know, for those of you who are starting to find yourself, you know, on the edge of starting to feel some of these experiences, some of these memory issues, these so-called senior moments that you keep saying, you know, these cognitive changes. Well, if you have diabetes, well, they could be associated to these toxicities. There's a lesson in there, right? So if you have diabetes, there's always a reason why it's there. You just got to ask yourself why. What's in my body that's not supposed to be there? You'll absolutely be shocked. Listen, I deal with this day in and day out. I am obsessed with this. And I still get shocked, right? I think we're going to end it here on that note. Make sure you guys are writing down your health goals for 2025. We talked about that last week. You can do this. This is your year. Until next time, I wish you all blessings.